everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm going to be doing my weekly wrap up. It's probably going to be a pretty quick one because it was a slow reading week for me. I think I only read 5 books. It did have a lot to do with, I took time off of work. Me and my mom went to Temecula and stayed for a couple days to do wine tasting, and I took another day off just to relax before going back to work. So I honestly really didn't read that much. So I'm sorry, but hopefully this will be a super quick one for you guys, unlike it usually is with me. But you never know, I may end up talking a lot anyways. So we're going to go ahead and dive into the books that I read. These are all the books that I read from the 16th through the 22nd. And I had a couple really good ones in here, so I can't wait to dive into those. All right, let's go ahead and get started on my weekly reads. Okay guys, so we're gonna hopefully quickly go through those 5 books. Before I do get started, I am, as always, gonna ask that you subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. All your support, even just watching my videos, liking, leaving me a comment is so appreciated. So let's go ahead and dive into the books. So the first book that I read was an ARC. This one is The Sweet Spot by Bella Matthews. This is the 4th book in the Playing to Win series. I believe it's the last book. This is the 2nd generation. I've only read like the 2nd generation and maybe one book of like the previous one. So it is a little confusing when you dive into these books because there's a whole like family tree in the beginning of the book, and it kind of like you're supposed to know who all these couples are, but I still really enjoy it. Maybe I'll go back and read some of her older books, but this is 2nd generation, and I've really grown to love. I've read each one in this series and I really loved each of the characters. I was looking forward to this one because this is going to be Brinley's romance. And there was some weird stuff going on with her in the previous book because the girls in the family have this one huge place. And then the guys have another one, and they end up switching for some kind of bet or something that happened that Brinley did. And you don't really know what happened. That gets kind of revealed in this. It's just a side plot. But she has always interested me. She's the physical therapist, and her mom actually owns the big hockey team for their family. So her mom's pretty powerful and badass woman. I guess you were supposed to know her from previous books, but I haven't read them yet. So in this, we have Brinley, and she had basically kind of had a crush on Deacon when she was like a teen. He was a few years older, so it's not like an age gap or anything, but when, she's 14 and he's like 17, about to be 18, it was kind of not okay for him to kind of go after that. But he kind of always knew she had a crush on him. But it's like 10 years later, and they run into each other at a bar while they're like, at the beach for the summer, and sparks fly instantly. He's very interested in her. He is a single dad, and he actually was just hired to be the coach for that hockey team that her mom owns. So he's about to become the coach. They kind of end up going off together, hanging out all night, talking, and they're like really excited, very interested in each other. This book is very low angst. There's not really any angst going on with this. But they end up kind of talking, and they want to see each other and everything. But she kind of wants it to be secret because of her family and her mom owning the hockey team. He is a single dad, and his daughter has been like basically living full time with his ex-wife. But his ex-wife is about to move to Japan, I believe it was, for her husband's new job. And they kind of come to a decision that it'd be best if their daughter Kennedy stayed with him, right now for those 2 years or whatever, full time, because his daughter has like severe anxiety and a lot of like issues, connecting and dealing with change. So he's very excited because for once he's going to have his daughter with him. But she's very stressed out about these changes. So they kind of start to date, and Brinley is hiding something. She has some kind of health condition she thinks she might have. could be genetically passed down. She found out her mom is actually not her real mom. She's adopted her. Her real mom basically didn't care about her, abandoned her. But she finds out her mom died and that she might have this gene. So that's something she's kind of nervous to tell him, and she needs to get tested to see if she has it, and she's just been putting it off. So it's kind of a weird setup because she ends up deciding that they should get married to make things easier for his daughter. So it's like a marriage of convenience, but they're already like super into each other. That was kind of iffy for me. I'm like, I don't think he needed to get married, because one of the best things about this book is his ex-wife. For once, we don't have an annoying other woman drama, bitchy ex. Like, she's amazing. She's like rooting for them to be together. She wants him to find happiness. She's very like social and like sweet. And so it was so nice to finally have a ex-wife that wasn't a freaking bitch. And they were just trying to do what's best for their daughter. So I really loved this. I appreciated like Brinley and how she tried to bond with Kennedy and make her feel comfortable. And it was just really sweet. And then of course you have the reveal of like her medical condition and all of that, and then keeping their relationship kind of a secret. So it's very low angst. I mean, immediately when they do this marriage of convenience, they're already telling each other that this is real, you know? So I found it really sweet. It's a nice, refreshing change from some of my angsty, over-the-top kind of, or dark romances that I read. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. And then it was 3 chilies, because Belle Matthews does bring a lot of dirty talk and spice. And they had some little rough sex kind of stuff going on. So I had a great time. And I can't wait to get to the next series, which is still continuing in the second generation. So we're going to get more of that. Okay, so on to my next one, and I'm so excited to talk about this finally. This is When the Earl Met His Match by Stacy Reid. This book was the one that I've seen Jen from the Book Refuge, a lot of other booktubers like loving this book. But I started at the beginning. This is book number 4 in the Wedded by Scandal series, and it's the best one. It was so amazing. I loved it. So this is between Hugh, the future Earl of Ashbury, and Phoebe. And Phoebe is actually the sister to the hero from like the previous book. I didn't really like him as much as a hero, and I really didn't like him in this book because he's not seen in the best light. But anyways, she basically had seen this advertisement done by Hugh, where he's advertising for a wife, and he has all these like list of things that the wife needs to be, and it's just so like throws her off, where she ends up writing him and kind of scolding him about like not romancing or wooing, and just like that's not how you go about this. And so they kind of start this communication through letters, and they kind of build this like friendly relationship through letters. Phoebe ends up thinking she's like fallen in love with like this lower guy, this guy that worked for her family and whatever. And she gets compromised. She did have sex with him, and now she's pregnant. He was going to ask for her hand and everything, but he basically like betrayed her because her parents were like, how much money is it going to take to make you go away? So they paid him off. He's gone, and she's pregnant. So she decides the best option for her, because she overheard, or her maid overheard, I can't remember, her mother talking about like sending her away and giving the baby away like to those baby farms, and she does not want anything to happen to her baby. So she basically decides she's gonna go for the advertisement, and she doesn't even really fully answer. Like, she shows up, and Hugh is actually Hugh, his father is the Earl. He's still alive, but he's almost like dying. So that's kind of why he needs to get married right away, because that's his dad's wish. His dad like has basically been drilling into his head his whole life that love is not okay. His mother like kind of abandoned him, and he's not even really that Earl's son, but the Earl's like, you're my son in every way it counts. So it's a really sweet relationship, even though he's been kind of telling him never to fall in love. he really loves Hugh. So that was like a really sweet relationship, because he's not even his biological son, but he accepts him. So anyways, that's just a little setup. Hugh is also mute. He cannot speak. Obviously, he can hear and everything. He just can't communicate. And so when she arrives, he was like really into her, but the father was like telling him like, you can't be picking that girl that's writing you those letters. She does not qualify. You will fall for somebody like that, and that's a no. But he ends up deciding he's going to help her. What I loved about this is she tells him right away, because she did not know he was going to be a titled man. She thought he was just had money and had wealth, and that she could be, you know, safe and protected with him. And so when she finds out he's going to be the Earl, she's like, I can't do this to you. You know, I'm pregnant. It could be a son, and it could be your heir. So I can't do that to you. And he lets her know, no, you know, like, I will accept your son or daughter as my heir, you know, as my child. And so they basically agree to this marriage of convenience. He lets her know right away there's going to be no love here. It's just going to be a marriage of convenience, and then we will have our own heirs and everything like that. So that starts out this marriage of convenience, but it was just so very sweet, because first they have kind of a language issue or a communication issue, since he can't speak, so he would write a lot of things. There was a sweet kind of date he took her on where he had all these written out things ready to go for any questions she would have, and he would just hand it to her. So there was a lot of really sweet, intimate moments between them. And it was a pretty slow burn, because she is pregnant and he decides they're not going to have sex while she's pregnant, and then she had to, you know, recover after her giving birth. And so, you know, it was a pretty slow burn to finally get to that part, but I loved it. Also, I loved that he accepted her child as his own, and he was very doting with the child. And so those were some sweet things. I did get frustrated with him for a little bit, because he is really sticking to his father's, how he drilled in his head about like, you can't be in love, you can't fall in love, and all of that. So it gets frustrating. But the thing that I loved was that Phoebe really like fought for their love and fought to prove to him that they could have a loving marriage, and it shouldn't just be a marriage of convenience. She shouldn't just back down or like run away or anything. She really fought for them to be together. So I really loved this, and I ended up giving it 6 stars, because there's just something that I love about the pregnant with, but not with his baby, and then like the father, the man accepting this child as his own. I'm a sucker for it. I love it. I just love Stacy Reid. I think she's one of my favorite historical romance authors. So I absolutely love this, and I'm excited to keep going through her backlist. So again, this was 6 stars and 2.5 chilies. Okay, so then I read another arc, and this is Chasing the Wild by Elliott Rose. And I've never read this author before, and I loved this book. This had everything that I love. It is small town, cowboy, age gap, and then of course my favorite, ex-boyfriend's dad. So this one is a really good tension, angsty, slow burn, and I loved it. And it's set in like this small town. Basically what we have is Colton and Layla. And Layla, you know, she hasn't been with this boyfriend for a while. It wasn't anything serious. They were together for like 6 months, and he was kind of a loser. And so she hasn't been with him. She travels from like place to place for jobs, because she is going to school to be a vet. She wants to work on farms, but she has to do like work placement where she works at certain ranches for a certain period of time. And so she is working her ass off, working extra jobs, plus doing that, going to school, and also taking care of like her aunt that like had dementia and everything. So there's a trigger warning for that, but it's not really seen. You don't see her with her or anything, but she's been paying for her to stay in, you know, one of those facilities. So she has a lot on her shoulders. And she basically is on her way to the next job, and the ex-boyfriend shit was like left at her house. So she's been trying to reach him. He had given her this address, and it's for this place in this small town up like a mountain in the middle of nowhere. And so she's kind of worried she's at the wrong place. Before she goes there, she has the meet cute with this older guy where like her card wasn't going through to pay for her gas. And so she's like freaking out. She thought she had enough money. And this really nice cowboy that was in this big truck like came up behind her and basically paid for her. And they start to kind of flirt. But you know, she kind of lets him know like, I'm on my way out of town. Like I'm just stopping by. So when she goes to the place to go find her ex-boyfriend, that's the guy she sees there. And it's actually her ex-boyfriend's dad. And so when he finds out she was with his son, he's just like, okay, no. But she drops off this shit, and then she thinks she's never going to see them again. But I think it's like 6 months later or something, she gets another job, and she's on her way out to that, and she finds out that her ex-boyfriend had basically kind of like stolen money from her. He put out like, I think, like a got credit or whatever, a loan, but it was like in her name. So now she has to pay like over like $2,500 by a specific date. And so she basically shows back up at the place to kind of confront her ex and get money. He isn't there. It's the dad, and he's totally rude and says he's like in town somewhere. So she goes to leave to do that, but a snowstorm's coming in, her car breaks down, and she's kind of forced to walk back to his place. And this happens a lot out there. They get snowed in, and they were basically going to be stuck together for weeks. No way for her to get down the mountain. And so he offers her a job on his ranch because he's got this beautiful ranch that she absolutely loves. And so she can get her job placement stuff that she's supposed to be getting while working for him. And so now they're stuck in this forced proximity. They're living in the same house, and they both want each other so bad. But he's really fighting it because he's trying to rebuild his relationship. He has a rocky relationship with his son. So he can't go there. So it was angsty. There's a lot of tension. I was dying for these two to get together. But let me tell you, when they finally get together, it is so hot. Like, I've never read this author before, but she brings the spice. I was hot and bothered. I was loving it. It was super spicy. There's a lot of good kinky stuff in here. And a lot of like angst and tension, and just you're dying for them to like be together. You know, and they actually get snowed in a couple different times. You know, they're able to go down to the mountain for a little bit, and then they're snowed in again. So like when they finally do get together, it's like a time limit on how long they have to be together. Anyways, I'm already talking too much, but I really loved it. I think it's one of the best ex-boyfriend's dads that I've read. I love the way it ended, like, you know, the angst and like the heartbreak, like of them not being together for a little bit. And I loved how it was resolved. And I'm super excited to read more from this author. This is a new to me author, and I'm definitely going to check out their backlist. And I can't wait to continue with this series. So I am really into it. So some of the kinks, I do want to give you a trigger warning. There is an attempted drugging, and then a drugging of a side character, so just be aware. And then some of the kinks we have: edging, rimming, a lot of butt play, snowballing, which, you know, I've been looking for those lately, so I was so excited to get a snowballing. And then there's breeding kink, but not like trying to get her pregnant, just the dirty talk of breeding. But anyways, I gave this one 5 stars and 4 chilies. I highly recommend it. So then I read Getting Real, and this is by Emma Chase. This is my first book by Emma Chase. I listened to this on audio. It is on Audible Plus right now. And this was like a nice little easy, quick read. I flew through the audiobook. It was a really good audiobook. This is between Connor and Violet, and Connor is a ER doctor, and Violet is a nurse that he works with. She's been crushing on him for years. He's also a single dad to 3 boys, and, you know, she never really thought he would look at her, and he starts to kind of notice her a little bit, and then they start kind of running together, and so they end up hooking up and having amazing sex and everything, but he like leaves the next day without saying goodbye or anything. So she was kind of like thrown off, and he was kind of listening to, I think, his brother, who's like a player's like advice. And so he thought leaving like that would make her want him more. And he was kind of playing a little bit of games that like he shouldn't have been. So it was kind of funny how clueless he was on the whole dating thing. So that is a little bit of issues in the beginning, but they resolved that really quickly. And she starts to really become a part of his life. She watches his 3 sons and they like love her. So this is a really low angst, sweet, single dad kind of romance. There is an issue that comes up, you know, his son, something that happens to his son. But, you know, I loved how mature they were and how they talked through everything. So it was honestly just a really sweet, low angst romance. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars and 2.5 chilies. Okay, we're already at the last book. So the last book that I read was Sanctuary by Claire Kent. This is the 6th book in the Kindled series, and I'm telling you, I love this series so much. I think each one has just been so good. And this one, I think, might be one of my favorites out of the series. This is between Aiden and Brianna. And in the previous book, we were introduced to Brianna because that her sister, that was her book. And you got to see how Brianna basically kind of traded her body with men to keep them safe and for survival purposes. So she wanted to keep her sister safe and her sister never to have to like have sex when she doesn't want to or hope them get raped. So she actually kind of traded her body to like the alphas in the groups that they would be with so that they had protection. Now she doesn't have to protect her sister anymore because her sister has found her love and they're settled into a really good community. So now Brianna's finally got like freedom and she doesn't really want anything to do with men. You know, she does have some PTSD for the things that she had to go through, during that period. So, you know, she kind of feels like she has sexual issues too a little bit. But so what she ends up doing is she's like a trader. She goes from town to town, trading goods, picking up jobs, you know, doing that kind of stuff for their community. And Aiden is kind of like this rival trader. He's been doing it way longer, and he doesn't like that Brianna's encroaching on his territory. And she's like, why do you get a territory? And so they have like this contentious relationship in the beginning. They butt heads. They're very competitive. And then they get this job where this lady runs this town and she's like, okay, I'm going to give it to both of you. Whoever brings back the goods first wins, and you guys, that person's going to be our like trader for our community. And so they're pitted against each other in this competition. They end up getting up there. Like, it's up this huge mountain to go to this. I think it was, I can't remember what it was, but it had like a bunch of wine in it. And so they kind of have to trek up this mountain. They both kind of end up in the same place at the same time. Because Brianna was having a really hard time crossing this bridge and it was super windy and there's a snowstorm. And she kind of gets hurt. Her leg gets hurt. And they decide to get shelter in this church. And so the storm is just too bad for either of them to go out. So they're kind of stuck. It's like a snowed in vibes in this church together for like, I think 3 to 4 days. And so it kind of forces them to actually get to know each other. And she realizes he's like attracted to her and he's like, you know, into her kind of, but fought it because he was irritated with her. And they really get to know each other's backstories. And so it makes them like more intimate and like friendly and kind of get over their issues with each other. And I just love their conversations, how she like exposed her vulnerability about like everything she'd been through. He talks about stuff that he went through to make him who he is now, where he's kind of shut off his emotions and just been all about himself for years. And so they end up really connecting and get intimate and stuff. So then they have to figure out, like, are we competitors or are we going to do this together? And so there is for other stuff that ends up happening near the end, a lot of action because we get to see some of the characters from the previous books all kind of like team up because they're trying to bring down this bad community that were responsible for kidnapping Brianna in the previous book. So I really, really loved this. I thought their conversations were so mature and sweet and so intimate. And I loved how honest they were with each other. And I just loved seeing this for Brianna because she'd been through so much. And it was just heartbreaking because she like literally admits like she had never had sex with a man because she wanted to. She never wanted to have sex with them. She did it for survival. So for their intimate scenes, when they finally have like sex and stuff, it was just so much more beautiful because he was constantly checking consent. And she really was like experiencing like sexual interest and enjoying herself in sex for like the first time. So I thought that was so beautiful. I'm just so blown away by Claire Kent and what she can do with just these like this Kindled series. Like they're shorter books. Like I think they're kind of novellas, but a little bit longer sometimes to be a novella. But she packs a punch. She packs an emotional punch, and she writes a full, like, well-rounded story and like good character development in each of these books. So if you haven't read the Kindle series yet, I would highly recommend it. I loved every one of them. I do recommend Last Light first because that book kind of sets up this world. And so I'm really excited to read. I think there's one more, and then it's going to be the final book. So I'm absolutely love this. I gave this 5 stars and 2.5 chilies, and it was just so amazing. So that's my week. It was pretty light, slim pickings here. Not a lot going on, but I had some really, really good reads. So I'm happy with it. But thank you so much for watching this. As always, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books or what your favorite book was this last week. And I will see you guys on the next one.